Now, I saw an interview where you said that because you were at the power station and Jim Steinman was in the other room, and then you sort of intimated that there was some crazy goings on. So it really intrigued me.
Oh, he asked us to go in and hear the song he was working on, and we didn't know anything about. I think we knew who he was because he'd done uh, Total Eclipse of the Heart. I think uh, had it. I'm not sure if Bad Out of Hell had happened. I don't know. I don't know the timeline. But anyway, he was doing a Bonnie Tyler song, another one of these huge monolithic songs. And as he said, come in at whatever time it was. He gave us a time to hear what he was doing, which in itself was weird because he didn't know us. And so we went in, and as we were at the door to the control room, we were handed lyric sheets, and he told us where to stand, the other side of the speakers, and he sang the song for us with his hand on the volume control. So the track was playing, and when in between his vocal, he jacked the volume up. So it was monumentally loud, and then back down, and he'd do the next bit. And at the end, he looked at us and for affirmation of how great it was. And I remember the three of us were sort of just bemused. I mean, generally, when you hear stuff the first time, I don't know about you, but I can't really go, oh, that's amazing, because I don't know what I'm hearing. I need to hear it a few times.
Yeah, no, I've been in the studio where artists are recording, and I've had, they've asked me, and I just think, A, who am I, and B, it's too early. I can't
I can't
respond.
tell.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. But I
yeah.
think
So
it's
anyway,
it's funny to have that sort of dynamic when someone, it's almost like an ego thing where what do they want out of you when you're in there?
yeah,
They
yeah.
must want confirmation in some way. But it's a great story. So what do you think? I asked you about Trevor Horn and what you learned from him, but I think there is always the other way around. What do you think Trevor Horn gleaned from you over your time working with him?
Wow. I've uh, pass. You'd have to ask him. I have no idea. Probably nothing. But I don't know. I don't know. We sort of ended up co-producing, and it worked for a while, but then we trod on each other's toes. Really, I think it's fair to say we ended up covering the same ground. I don't know what he. My God, I don't know. He's got a book coming out. Maybe he'll say.
Yeah. No, but I always find it an interesting thing because people always talk about what they learned from other people, but they never really think about
No, that's
what they may
true.
have contributed. You know what I mean? And we all
Yeah.
contribute something. So I'm sure there is something there and something positive that he would have taken away from working with you. How does ownership work in these situations in a studio in terms of input of the various people? Because I think this is always a question, and it's always something that comes up. When you think about bands and the problems they have about ownership and who's done what and who earns what and all this stuff. I just wondered how does it work within
Do,
terms of a
do, do,
studio?
do you mean publishing?
Yeah. Well, I
Oh,
mean,
well, I learned that it was another thing I learned from Trevor. And not only Trevor, but it was kind of obvious. One has to be very circumspect about this. Or not now. It seems that things have changed. You write, you come up with a beat, you get some of the publishing. But back then, and to me, always, if I fiddle around with the arrangement of something or chords or rhythm or what, that's not writing. Paul McCartney said to me that uh, writing was lyrics and melody. I don't. I think he adheres to that very strictly. I think possibly a bit too strictly in my experience with him. But I know where he's coming from, and certainly the artists I've worked with, I wouldn't. claim publishing unless I've written the music with them, from the off.
So
Simple Minds, I think Simple Minds gave me publishing on 2 songs on Real Life. I would have, I don't know how they came up with that. I would have said all of them, but I would never argue with them about that. It was Ronan Keating I wrote loads with, Will Young I wrote loads with, the girls from Propaganda I've just done an album with, wrote the whole thing with them. Loads of things I've written, but then with Annie, whatever input I might have had, it wasn't writing, for example.
Okay, well, let's talk about Annie. What input then do you feel you had with Annie? There, she's coming out of a massively successful band with Dave Stewart and going solo, and you've done your research on her and gone in and said, okay, we should do this without the guitar, and she's a keyboardist, so we can concentrate on that. What at first, what was it like to work with Annie Lennox? And I can imagine that she's a very headstrong person. I've interviewed her in the past, but she's got a toughness about her that is really quite well, I find it quite cool, actually, that she knows what she wants. So how is it to work with someone who really sort of seems to know what they want?
Well, I made 3, in effect 4 albums with her. 3 albums, a load of live stuff and stuff for movies, and a lot. And they've all been different. And I think to begin with, she was very unsure of herself, and needed not cajoling, but confidence boosting, which I messed up when I first met her, but got past that. And then as things went on, and she became more secure as a solo artist, I think our level, we'd argue a lot. We argued a lot. Certainly on Medusa, we argued. Oh God, I'm saying this like, it's a badge of honor. I'm not saying it. What I mean is her understanding of what she wanted to do increased. And then Bear, we sort of, we'd had enough, because we would disagree on rubbish things, but in a way we become over familiar, and I was happy to disagree with her in a way you do with someone you're familiar with, as opposed to being circumspect, maybe. So I'm somewhat to blame in that department, but then she became more opinionated, and I didn't think she was right, whereas before she wouldn't have expressed those opinions. Do you see what I'm saying? So the whole sort of balance shifted, as happens with these kind of relationships.